Yes, we are recording. Okay, everyone. The first thing that I wanted to just go through is NQ, the markets in general. As you can see in the chat, I've been telling everyone to avoid trading gold, just assets that are at all-time highs. And Friday was a perfect example as to why we should be avoiding looking at such assets. Okay, um, so let me just make sure everything is up and running. Um, okay, just give me a second, guys. Just need to make sure everything is working. Okay, cool. Why is my trading view not working? Give me a second, guys. Yeah, everyone can see my screen, right? Yeah, just let me know that you can see my screen. Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. Yes, everything is up and running. Cool, perfect. Right, so let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to do was just look through why I solely focused on NQ, and why I haven't actually been looking at any other assets. Um, And the reason being is because NQ is the only one that has been given a higher time frame direction. And I get it a lot every single time, like in the chat, why did this not work out? Why did this can you analyze this chart for me? And I always look at the higher time frame to give me my direction. So I'm just gonna draw a couple lines, and these are the lines that you should have all drawn when analyzing NQ. So first things first, we had a break of structure to the upside. Okay, we're looking at it from a higher time frame perspective, and we had those buyers trapped, and we had sellers induced in the markets. Okay, and then what was really interesting to see here was after we had sellers induced in the markets, we had this build up. Okay, and you can see how the market had this bullish move up, okay, reacting to those inducement high, and it took that inducement high out, inducing buyers again in the markets. And so we had this massive buildup of price, okay, and you can see how it was taken. So if you really zoom in, this is why you got to be very precise. So if you zoom in, you can see that this high was taken. And so what did the market do? It essentially took out all of these buyers in the markets, and so what we then had was more buyers come in, and we have this massive build up that I've been speaking about. If I go to the daily time frame, we've been speaking about these highs for a long time. Okay, so we had a very clean higher time frame direction, and last week what we did essentially was induce buyers. So we had a break of structure to the upside. Okay, we had buyers induced. Okay, we had another break of structure from that area, inducing more buyers. And then what happened was we trapped those buyers. Okay, and so this we have now formed is a liquidity block essentially. Um, And so after trapping these buyers, and what we've done is we've also taken liquidity from the left. So we have sellers induced in the market, and this is how we frame the higher time frame. We're in the daily, the weekly, and we have a very clean direction. Why? So this is the checklist. You have a higher time frame build up, okay, above. You have sellers induced, so a build up, sellers induced, buyers trapped, okay, And all we're looking for going into the new week, okay, is buyers. Okay, we shouldn't really be looking for sells. Although there are times where it's quite clean to take a sell, which I'll show you guys. But that is how I frame my week going in to Monday. And so what happened was, you can see here, starting on Monday, and we'll dissect day by day what's been happening in the markets. I'll take questions at the end because I really, really want to just dissect the technicals going into this week. So, breaker structures, okay, liquidity was taken, and this part is really key. So, after liquidity was taken, you can see how approaching the end of the week, okay, any move from, if I just put it as any move from this leg, so from this leg to this leg at the bottom, okay, so A to B, any move should be false, okay, and so you can see how we reacted from this leg, and we had a build up. Now this is so key. Going into Friday, we saw a build up of these highs. So to show you guys what I'm talking about, this is just literally based off the higher time frame. We had a break of structure, respect the lows, break of structure, respect the lows. Sorry guys, I just got a cough. So, going into the new week, and this is super important. So the 1 hour is what I like to focus on as a day trader. It really gives me the bias and the traps. It just easily shows me where buyers and sellers are induced and trapped. And I like to focus on the 1 hour, although we know price is fractal. So whatever's happening on the lower time frames is playing out in the higher time frames. It just takes longer for it to present or to show those candles. So this is where we started. So this was last week. So this is last week. And so you've got this higher time frame build up. Buyers continuously being induced. The only line you should have had. And I didn't expect it to get taken out straight away as soon as market opened. So we had a break of structure, liquidity being built to the downside. Okay, and then a break of structure to the downside. That liquidity is now taken. Now I was eyeing this, okay, and this is what I was looking for. So as soon as I saw that market open like this, look at the way that gapped down, took out. Sorry, guys. So it took that liquidity, and what was I looking for? We had a break of structure to the upside, and you can see how price respected this area. Okay, and then we had another break of structure, and you can see how we are staying below the inducement high, and that is super key because right now we have sellers induced in the market. A lot of people are selling this thing, and something I've been testing is the Fibonacci. A lot of people use the Fibonacci as a tool to get in the market, and I've been testing how we use it to trap. So for example, most people would be taking the Fibonacci leg from the top to the bottom, and look how the market stays below the 78.6 level and gives that reaction down. Okay, whatever it is, Fibonacci, smart money trap, you can look at it as where smart money are getting in, retail, and look how we had that reaction from this level. Okay, everything happens for a reason. Okay, price is telling us Now, unfortunately, okay, price did not come for the build up, so I wasn't able to get in. I was waiting for this level to get taken, because what I would have done is have my entry like this, with stops covering that liquidity block, and I would have been targeting those highs, okay, all the way above. So if I just zoom out, okay, go to the 1 hour. So yeah, I would have been targeting these highs here. Now the RR doesn't really make sense at the minute. So a 1 to 2.8. However, if I go back to that price action, watch what happens here. Okay. So there was no entry on the open. However, you can see how buyers are being induced. And what happens is the buyers now get trapped. That is what we're looking for. We're looking for buyers to be induced. Okay. You can see that buyers are getting in and they get trapped. So what we've formed here is a liquidity block. Okay. And we then have another build up, and this is really, really key. We are looking for price to essentially build early buyers, okay, into the market. Price reacts. Now if you look at this, this is a very tricky entry. I believe Abed took this. You can see how buyers have been induced, and then they're trapped. That is an entry, because I would have covered this liquidity block. Now this is really risky because we have liquidity below. So I would have lowered the risk here, and I would have targeted the highs. Okay, and on CFDs I would have just held that. Obviously on futures prop accounts, you would have had to close at market close, which is around here, which still gives around, yeah, 1 to 3. So that would have been an entry, okay, on the way up, which is really nice. And then you can see how the market has had this massive bullish move up from New York stock open. And you can see there was no entry because price took these highs. Okay, so price took that inducement high, okay, inducing buyers. And once those highs were taken, I just shut my laptop because I knew there wasn't going to be any other opportunity on a Monday. Okay, so that was Monday's price action. And even if we go to the 5 minutes to show how fractal this is, so you can see how we've got buyers induced, buyers trapped. Now we did have this liquidity below, which I wanted, but we didn't get that. Now look how when we approached, we reacted from these highs. Okay, and what did the market do on New York Stock Exchange Open? Okay, so at 2:30 my time, which I believe is 9:30 EST, the market took those highs, okay, and we just flew. Okay, so there was no entry for me. And then you can see how, if we just zoom out, price takes those highs. Going back to the 1 hour actually to show that. So this is the entry that I'm talking about. Okay, so we hit those highs on Tuesday, but this was Monday, so there was nothing happening on Monday. And on Tuesday we were still respecting those highs. So that was the only entry I saw on Monday. On Tuesday, what was interesting is we have buyers induced, okay, Um, and this is where I took a break even actually. So here we have Tuesday's price action. You can see how we have essentially been respecting these lows here. So we have a build up of price. Okay. And on the H4, it looks even cleaner because anytime I see H4 candles being respected, there is a lot of liquidity below there. And so if we zoom out, what do I see price do? We have, if I just clear up my charts, we have a clear target to the highs. A clear target to the highs. Now, I actually saw this being a liquidity block where we had buyers induced and trapped. So I thought this was quite clean. I had my entry set out like this. And I was waiting for um, New York Stock Exchange open. And on the open, what happened was we took those lows. Okay, so I'll show you guys what I mean. So right on the open, we took those lows and we then took those highs. Now I took a partial here. And in fact, if I go to the 1 minute, I'll show you guys what happened. So look how funny this is. Once we took those lows, bang on 230, price reacted strongly. We took those highs. As soon as I saw those highs being taken and how volatile this was, I went break even straight away. And thank God that I did, because I saved a loss. Because once we've taken these highs out, we've reacted off that liquidity block below. So price can come lower. So I went BE and price just essentially reacted to taking out all of the liquidity below. I should have actually zoomed out and saw that this whole thing was liquidity. Okay, essentially an inducement low. Um, and if we really want to get into the nitty gritty, look at where we broke structure from, where buyers were induced from, and the low that took that high. Price came into that, which is something I believe you guys should all mark out. So anytime we have a break of structure, the low that takes that high, okay, is our inducement low. It's where buyers are induced from. Okay, price comes, takes out that inducement low. Okay, and then what do we do? Okay, again, we had such a clean direction. I really wanted to get involved here, but after taking that BE, I was hesitant because we still had liquidity below here. And then what did the market do? Massive bullish move up, 245 candle. We took the highs, and you can see how if we just keep playing up price, we take those highs. Okay. And I believe those were the only trades I took on that day. Yeah, on Tuesday. And there was no other trades after that. So you can see here the new H4 candle opens at 3. You can maybe treat that as a liquidity block, but after taking these highs, I just play out this high. Whoops, I just got to a higher time frame. So yeah, once we took out these highs, I mean, I wouldn't really be looking for buys. So these highs here. I wouldn't really be looking for buys. And so buyers induced, we then just have a build up of buyers getting in. Okay. over here. So I'll just mark this out. Okay, so this candle here, and that was Tuesday. Okay, not much going on after those highs were taken. Okay, price played out, took those highs. Now, this is really important. If I go back to the 1 hour time frame, Wednesday was FOMC. Now, look how from that low, we've now taken those higher time frame highs. Okay, now this is something I want to talk about. If I clear my charts, right, so those highs are now taken. Now, I've seen some people message me and even in the chat, people looking for shorts straight away because they've seen highs taken, buyers induced. Now, what I like to do is just mark liquidity out. I know we have these lows still intact that the market can hunt for. Okay. And we know buyers are induced in the market. Now, I always like to see, what do I have to the left? We have all-time highs. And we have a liquidity block, which is this here. Okay. And if I go to the daily, I think it plays it out even better. The candle looks better. Yeah. So look, you can see how we need to engineer more liquidity to the highs. So what is the market going to do? So look, Monday, we had this trap buyers bullish move up. Tuesday, we took the highs. Now Wednesday is FOMC. Typically on a Wednesday or a Thursday, we tend to see a reversal. Okay. Now I saw that we had a build up below, and I was framing out shorts after this, but I was waiting for the market to actually show me its hand. So you can see here Wednesday, okay, we started to react. Now if I go down to lower time frames, we can see this a bit better. So what I like to do is I let price play out. You can see here we reacted from the candle to the left and we had a break of structure. Okay, now I am not looking to get in straight away. If I've had a break of structure to the downside and I've had a build up of price, however you want to draw it, as a trend line, okay, we know that price is coming for those highs. And this is during when is this? So this is Wednesday, approaching NYSE. Okay, you can see how we've had this reaction down. And what are we essentially doing? Okay, we have buyers induced, buyers reacting off the lows. Okay, and Wednesday I'm cautious because of FOMC. Now, what does FOMC do? And this is really, really important here. Okay, look at how we have a liquidity block below. Okay, we have a build up above. Literally, FOMC built up buyers. If we go to the lower time frames, we can see this much better. Look how we were building, okay, during the PM session. So we can see here breaker structure respecting these lows. Now look at that candle. You can see FOMC didn't really do much. Respecting buyers going higher. And then at 9 o'clock, so this is approaching market close. Look at how those lows were taken and we had this massive move up. Now this is not a move we want to be in because the highs have been taken. All we have done is respected the lows to the left, and we've built liquidity there. So we can use that as a target. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And this is why I said for us to study NQ, because we've taken structure to the downside and we've also taken some highs. Now, nothing clean, because I wanted these highs to go. That would be high probability for me. Nonetheless, look at how we respected, okay, this liquidity block. Not something I'd be taking. But notice how we respected it and moved away. Okay, so essentially what I'm talking about is this, taking those highs. Okay, now I would mark that out as a liquidity block because we had sellers induced, sellers trapped. And look at what the market did. So we're now approaching Thursday. Okay, now your higher time frame buyers should be shorts. Notice how price is inducing sellers. We've had a breaker structure to the upside. There are more buyers getting involved. Sorry, guys. So we can see reactions out of here. Those are not entries, or we don't want to be taking any trades in this area, okay? Because that would be with structure. So we wait for the market to give a reaction out. Okay, you can see loads of buyers getting in. Okay, and we take the high. Okay, so we take this high. More buyers in the market. And then we finally take that internal to the left. Now this is playing out nice for me because I can see we are building liquidity below. Okay, so we have loads of buyers in the market right now. I'm waiting for a liquidity block to form, a build up, and then I'll take an entry. So you can see here, and this is actually, I needed one winning day of $150. So I'll show you guys what I did. I can see how we've taken early sellers out. Okay, and if I go to the 5 minute, this will show it even better. Watch this, guys. So I was hating myself for this. So look, we had a breaker structure to the downside, early sellers trapped. We are in a liquidity block. Okay, again, taking that, what we're going to take, the highs. Okay, and this is now approaching London session. Okay, so we have a liquidity block here. Okay, why? Because we had sellers induced, sellers trapped, and we're building all of this liquidity below. Okay, now I was risking very little, like 1 micro, just to make $150. So I can see that we have this build up of sellers, and I took an entry here. I believe it was here. Yeah, it was. And it was such a little stop. I had it like, I ended up covering that whole stop above. And so what I did was I let the market enter. So I entered there, and I was literally looking for a 1 to 3. So what I did was, as soon as I made $150, I exited. Okay. And so this was my entry for Thursday. I believe it was here. And I exited. Okay, so that was my 1 to 3, and I made $150 in there. Now, this trade is valid. Why? We have a liquidity block. Okay, we had a build up, trap, and then the good stuff. And then this was London session on a Thursday. Okay. Um, Now, what I should have actually been doing is just letting the trade run. But I just wanted to secure that profit to secure payout. This ideally would have been a very nice trade. Okay, we have a build up, and so I'll just play out price, and we can see what happened here. So again, we can see here. Okay, we're just respecting. So we're having a lower low, lower high, lower low. Okay, we're just building liquidity. Okay, and we are approaching stock exchange open, and what happens, the market just sells off. Now this would have been a very, very nice trade. Now what I wanted you guys to pay attention to, and this is really, really important, if I go back to the 15-minute time frame, okay, and I told you guys that at the beginning of the week, okay, we took out those lows, okay, and we was waiting for this build up. This is the build up we was waiting for. Okay, and this is why I like leaving the lines on sometimes, because all of this is a build up, okay, of buyers. Now what does the market do on Thursday? The market sells off. Okay, so that was the only entry in London, okay, which I took. I literally closed for $150, but look how the market sold off on a Thursday, taking out all of those buyers. And just to frame out the week so far, look at Monday and Tuesday, just buyers getting into the markets. Wednesday, we had FOMC, again, induced more buyers, okay, into the market. And Thursday, look at how we just took all of those buyers out, okay, which I think is crazy times. And so on Friday, if we just zoom out, look at what price does. So this is around 345, okay, on a Thursday. I would still not be looking for any buys, okay, because we've taken higher time frame highs from the left. And what we then have is that inducement high taken, and we can frame out what happens from here. So here's the inducement high that gets taken. Okay, why am I marking out this high specifically? Because before this break, before this red line, that was the high that broke that low. And you see we've reacted to it. Okay, we've reacted to that candle. So price come and takes that high. Okay, we've induced buyers again. Okay, we have liquidity below. Yeah, price has respected this low over here. Okay, so I'll just clear up my charts now. So that I'll keep that as a liquidity block. I'll keep this here. Okay, we've taken those lows. Okay, and we've taken those lows as well. I'll clear all of this as well. So, right, what do we see now? We see buyers induced into the market. Okay, we can see here, if I play out price, so this is Thursday close, market close. Okay, and I'll zoom out so we can see here. We had buyers induced. We trapped some buyers, induced sellers, and then we took out those sellers. Okay, so for me, that is a liquidity block. Okay. We also have a liquidity block above here as well. Again, why? Because look how we broke structure to the downside, and then we trapped those early sellers. Okay, so we had a liquidity block, and you can see here the market then took out another high. So this is what I would have been drawing on as I approached Friday. Okay, so another liquidity block here. So if I just mark that out. Okay, so all the liquidity block to us is where liquidity has been taken. There's no liquidity above there. Okay, and so what we then have is price selling off. Okay, remember we on this leg up from A to B, we've induced buyers. So all of these reactions should be false. Okay, these should all be false reactions. We want to see liquidity blocks being respected because they provide reactions out. So you can see how we, again, just react off these lows to the left. Okay, um, so this is Asia session. Okay, you can see how we have a build up of sellers. Okay, look at where price is reacting from. So look, we had this breaker structure to the downside. Price is most likely to come and run some highs to the left. Okay, that is an inducement high because before this breaker structure, look how we respected those highs. Okay, maybe even that high there. So I'm just waiting now. See how this is just all a build up. I would not be involving myself in any of this. Okay, we then break. Do we break structure to the downside? Not yet. Okay, and then we approach. Yeah, so we broke structure to the downside now. Okay, we're now approaching London on a Friday. Now, after such a big move down, okay, we can expect choppy price action the next day. Now, the market's just inducing sellers. We know at some point, okay, these guys are going to get trapped. So, we've taken these lows to the left, but we've respected them. So, we can expect price to reverse, okay, until you can see how all this liquidity was now taken. Okay, and that's what caused this reaction up. Okay, we're approaching New York, so I'll just zoom in and look at how at 12 o'clock, okay, we've taken those highs, inducing buyers, but we are still respecting these highs to the left. Okay, so buyers induced, not looking for any buyers whatsoever. Okay, so 130, okay, I believe that was news. We spiked all of these early buyers out. Again, we have a liquidity block below. I will not be looking for buyers, okay? Just low probability in my eyes. So we're waiting for those highs to get taken. And I believe at New York Stock Exchange Open, those highs go. I took an entry here. And I had my stop above all of these highs just to cover myself. And then I was targeting these lows over here. So this is where price respected. And so you can see what happens here. And this is now a liquidity block actually, because we've taken liquidity from the left. And I spotted this when I was looking back yesterday actually. Look, if I go to the 1 minute, look how choppy price is. I think it comes to the extreme. Let's just play it out. I believe price chopped around for ages. This is not price action you really want to be in, but yeah, that's another entry. Price taking those highs, and then I would have just covered the highs above, targeting again, because I know this is a liquidity block, just a 1 to 3 really minimum. So again, just those lows. I'll zoom out, and again, after such a massive move down, I don't expect much on a Friday, but you can see how all of these buyers are induced in the markets. Okay, and what does price do? It just comes, and this is where we end on Friday close. Okay, so I closed all positions around here anyway because I'm not going to be looking at the charts Friday evening. Okay, and this is where we are at the minute. So we can see how we can frame out our direction, and then we're just looking for our entry, and that's what happened on Friday. Now, if we zoom out and just clear out our charts, we still have, and this is what I'm looking for going into Monday on NQ, because we've taken out these highs. I see us just dropping very fast to these lows. So 24,849.25. I can see we now have a build up of price over here. So what I'm expecting, hopefully, for NQ is to maybe come up higher and then drop to these lows. So that's my plan essentially for the week, where I will only be looking for sales. I will not be looking for any engineered buys because those would be with structure. You can see how we've broken structure to the upside. Okay, and we are respecting these lows. Okay, so wait for the reaction up, take out these early sellers, and then we can see that move down. Okay, so sells are what you should be looking for going into NQ. But I'll take questions now. I haven't been looking at the chat. So yeah, feel free to ask questions. This would be in the course recording. Yes, yes, it would. Can you please give some examples of a fake move? Yeah, have the BADG if you're trading futures. So here on the bottom right hand side, B adjacent adjust for contract changes on futures. It will show completely different PA if you don't have that. So if you're looking at NQ, YM, GC, any futures markets, make sure you have that. Can you cover US 30? Yeah, I took a loss on US 30. I'll actually show you guys where that loss was. Let's just look at it from a higher time frame. Okay. This was super annoying actually. I'll show you guys what happened. So you can see here, if we just look at current PA, we have a build up of price below. I'll actually zoom back to what I was looking for. So we've induced buyers, okay, into the market. So break a structure. Someone asked me about a false move. This is what a false move is. So after having a break of structure to the upside, we respect this area and we move away. Notice how we even break structure to the upside. Okay, creating a liquidity block. Now that is a false move. That is inducing buyers. So any reactions from here are false. Now, what was I waiting for? I was waiting for, if I go down to the lower time frames, I'll show you guys. So what did price do? We can see a clear build up. Sorry for my cough, guys. I'm just recovering from an illness. So Um, this is what happened. You can see a clear build-up of sellers. I saw a liquidity block, and I saw a build-up. And what happened? I took my entry. Liquidity block. So I covered my stop loss. As soon as we opened NYSE, so you can see that over here. Was it this one? Was this the entry? Yeah, sorry, it was the entry. So it was this, sorry. So here's this liquidity. So these highs were taken. Sorry, this is what happened. So these highs were taken. I saw a liquidity block, and then I saw a build up of price, and I took my entry here. This is where I took my entry. I had my why is it not showing? Yeah, there we go. I had my liquidity block above. But one second, guys. 1 second. Okay, so I remember being on call with Abid actually, and we was waiting for it to reach this imbalance for the RR to make sense. And what did price do? It opened NYSE, that's it, 230, spiked us out. Okay, you can see how it took us out here and went in our direction. Okay, now I did see some people in the chat where they were waiting for these highs to go, and they managed to get in. It's just one of those trades with the liquidity block above. It's just one of those trades. Take the L on the chin. But yeah, guys, that was the L that I took. And that was YM. That was the only trade on YM I was looking for. Okay. So yeah, that is basically price action for this week on NQ and YM. Feel free to ask questions now. Been following along with your markups as I mark my own charts definitely has helped train the eyes better. Thank you. That's why I asked you guys to do that homework, mark out price action Monday to Friday. Yeah, that's the exact same loss I took, Hamza. When do you move your SL to break even? So I move my SL to break even after my entry becomes an inducement low, because price can hunt that. So if my entry is now an inducement low, and we build at that entry, I will move my SL to break even. Bro, when you take losses, do you find it's from you miss something on your analysis, or is it just trade loses sometimes? Listen, if we had a strategy that had 100% win rate, we'd all be millionaires. The market works. It's not perfect, you know. Our strategy is not perfect. That's why we have a system that works. It's an edge that plays out. We'll take losses along the way, but we're just making sure that our risk is managed and our wins are greater, or we have a higher win to loss rate. Sometimes it might be we used the wrong liquidity block. There was liquidity the market wanted to hunt further. These are all things that can play out. Okay. How do you know it's a low probability day or week? I'm not going to lie to you. Marco went through this in last week's webinar. Um, if we go to the daily, I'll show you guys what I mean. Sorry, guys. All right, so how do I know what a low probability day is? So if we play within the day's range, for me, that's a low probability day. What do I mean by that? Any day, if I just zoom, if I go back in price, look, here is an example for me where I would not be trading on this Friday because there is nothing taken in terms of a daily high or a daily low. So for me, that doesn't really make sense. If we've taken out, for example, loads of liquidity in this example here, I know the next day is going to be rangy. So I would be cautious trading that. So a low probability day is where there's not enough liquidity or liquidity has just been taken. So I'll wait for the high or low to print and then I'll wait a few days and then I'll trade again. Because you got to remember, after retail see, for example, these bearish moves down, they're looking to get into sales the next day. Okay? And to show you guys that, look what happens. After such a massive move down, look at how the market just on Wednesday takes them all out. See, that's not PA that I want to really be in. Okay? And then what does the market go and do? It just gaps back down. So those are days that I try to avoid. Sometimes price respects retail, goes to hunt an inducement lower high. If we get an entry on this piece of PA, can we enter? Yeah, as long as it follows the strategy. Adam, can you share how do you go about your funded accounts? Do you scale them up with smaller account at first? So I have quite a few funded accounts. I don't trade them all at the same time. Number one, I don't recommend you do that either. I have some accounts or prop firms that I risk quite a lot because I've built a buffer, and I have some that I risk $200 to $500 on a 50k. So I have accounts that have different risk parameters. Basically, I don't have one fixed risk, and my trades are always dynamic risk. If I see a Da Vinci that's high probability, I'll risk more. More than 1% sometimes. But it's very important to build a buffer in your accounts. So obviously you start by risking a small amount, build your buffer, and then you can start scaling in and building up your account size. I've taken an account from like 50k to 100k. Once I got a buffer, I was just risking like 2% sometimes. Yeah, so that's what I would recommend. Any other questions, guys? If you guys see what gold's been doing, that's why I've been telling everyone to stop trading gold. Like, what are you guys doing? Some of you don't listen. Look at gold. Damn. Yeah, that's not where price is. Wow. Those buyers were taken out. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend trading gold, silver, any of those assets. It's up to you guys, but I'd avoid. I have TradeSync. If I have both eval and funded accounts in Alpha Futures, is it possible to set up two leaders, one for eval and another for funded? No, you can only have one lead account on TradeSync. Feel free to ask your questions, guys. Feel free to ask questions. If you guys want me to look at any other charts. Oh, actually, something I did want to talk about. I've been, if you look at my previous webinar, I've had my analysis on BTC, paying out to the T. Look at this. And this isn't financial advice, but the same system playing out. Buyers induced, buyers taking positions at these lows. See, we got a breaker structure, false move up. And what's the market doing? Hunting for that liquidity. Okay, such an easy setup. XRP, I went through all of this in my last webinar. I even have the marking still up. Look at that. Breaker structure, the upside. Sellers induced, sellers trapped. Bomb. The rest is history. And I am waiting for, and I believe Marco shared this as well. Look at how our model provides direction and entries. Now that right there is amazing. So I am waiting for $879.8 on Ethereum, and I will be investing heavily into that. And then I even had XRP and Solana marked exactly to where I wanted it to come through, and look how it has done that. So I'm just going to wait for a bottom to print, and then I'll be investing in XRP. I believe Solana is approaching the lows that I want taken as well. So that's some XRP game for you. When do you typically switch between accounts, since you mentioned you don't trade each account at the same time? So I like to build buffers in my accounts. So 1 week I would trade accounts that don't have much buffer and build those up. And then if I see high probability conditions, so for example, that NQ sell, I would trade that on my top step accounts, which generally I have high buffers in. All right. So this question from Assad 96, trading on would depend how many minis and micros you're using. Now, the minis chart is what we use to analyze. Okay, PA. That is the true data from CME. Okay, so CME is the data provider, and it's the most accurate one. So it's not through any broker feed. So one of the advantages as to why people come onto futures is the data feed is regulated. Okay, so that's the first one. How much you want to, or you can use the prop firm platform, which is nice, nicely integrated. So those are the sort of benefits. Cut all the liquidity below. It's trading at all-time highs. So why would I trade it? Because you can take out all this liquidity below. But what's stopping it from just bouncing through here? Liquidity block. Any price strategy. I'm hoping we don't do something like this. Yeah. And you focus on risk parameters. Through a lot of things in my life. I mean, master risk, dynamic risk, and I still do that till I believe. Wow, what a drop! Yeah, I had this marked. I can see where price was reacting from, but yeah, these lows look crazy to me. Yeah, you can see why the market had a reaction out from here. You can see we're in a liquidity block. But yeah, I believe Marco was in a sell. I believe Marco was in a sell from here somewhere. So yeah, or maybe even above. But yeah, the lows look good. I just see it further downside, to be fair. you don't have access to my Discord, bro. That's just my own back testing and stuff like that, like I've done over the years. Um, yeah, bro.